Hello, sorry.
I'm guessing we're live now. This is the NJPACT report out on rulemaking, and this is going to be a recorded session. Next slide. This meeting is being held by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection for general information purposes only and does not reflect any final agency decision or action. Next slide. All right, good afternoon. My name is Ken Ratzman, and I'm the Assistant Director for Air Quality Regulation and Planning in the Division of Air Quality. Joining me today is Peg Hanna, Assistant Director for Air Monitoring and Mobile Sources for the Division of Air Quality. Together, we will walk through the NJPACT climate pollutant rules we anticipate proposing in the new year based on input and feedback we received over the course of 2020. Before we get into the rule overview, I want to go through a few housekeeping items. First, this is a live event being recorded and will be posted on the department's NJPACT website for those unable to join us today. The link to that site is on the slides as well as in your chat for your convenience. All attendees are currently in listen-only mode. If you have any administrative or technical question about today's event, please type it in the QA chat and staff will work to address it. The QA chat function is at the bottom right-hand side of your screen when you click on the QA panel. Next slide. So how do we get here? It's been a little while in the making. In 2019, the Energy Master Plan was finalized. In fact, it was the very end of 2019. Executive Order 100 was signed in January 2020, which kind of spelled out some of the greenhouse gas goals on carbon dioxide goals. In February and again in August, we held stakeholder sessions to go over rule concepts, rule ideas, and solicit feedback and input. And just recently in October, the Global Warming Response Act 80/50 report was issued, which kind of is a framework or a game plan on how to meet those goals. Next slide. So getting into a little bit of the meat of the material, some of the areas we're going to be focusing on, or we decided to focus on, is fossil fueled fired electric generating units. There's going to be three components we're looking at. First is for the existing EGUs. There's going to be a CO2 emission limit, regardless of the fuel, regardless of the type of system, that ratchets down over time, and it's going to be an efficiency type standard. There's going to be a new baseload EGU standard. It's a CO2 emission limit based on the rate achieved by the most efficient combined cycles currently out there. So the most recently built combined cycles are quite efficient, and that's where we're looking to go for this standard. And we're also going to be looking at a new non-baseload and modified EGU standard, and that's going to be a case-by-case review depending on where you fall into the hierarchy. Next slide. We're also going to be focusing some effort on the commercial and industrial boilers. We're going to be looking at a phase down of small boilers. What does that mean? Less than 5 million BTUs. Any small boiler burning fossil fuel less than 5 million BTUs will be evaluated and looked at, and we'll have to come up with a non-fossil footprint. There are ways of still getting a fossil fuel boiler by imposing conditions for permit approval, which can include technical infeasibility of a non-fossil fuel boiler at a particular location. There's also going to be a boiler fleet for those larger sources where multiple boilers are at a given site. We're going to be asking facilities to analyze data, submit a report, and kind of ratchet down on the older fossil fuel combustion boilers with non-fossil fuel boilers. Next slide, please. And this one is straightforward. It's simply a ban on the sale of number 4 and number 6 liquid heavy fuels. There's only a handful of uses in the state left for this. There will be an exemption for marine vessels. So on the stationary source side, we're looking at ratcheting down on EGUs. We're looking at the phasing out of small fossil fuel-fired boilers, and we're looking at the ban on the heaviest of the liquid fuels. So that's it on the stationary source side. Next slide. So I'm going to turn it over to Peg Hanna, my co-assistant director.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. So I wanted to give you an update on which of the transportation-related rules we are moving forward with of the ones that we had stakeholdered back in September. So the first rule is the Advanced Clean Truck Rule. So this is California's rule. One of the things that we need to always be mindful of is that when we're talking about transportation-related regulations, for the most part, we have to adopt California's rules by reference. Under the Clean Air Act, we are preempted, for the most part, from adopting rules of our own when it comes to transportation. So these rules of California's will be adopted by reference. They will apply to medium and heavy duty vehicles. So that's class 2B through 8, both diesel and gasoline. The ACT rule is a phased in sales requirement. So that starts with model year. We are proposing for it to start with model year 2025 in the New Jersey rule, and the requirements will become increasingly stringent through model year 2035. There will also be a New Jersey specific reporting component in there. It's very similar to California's reporting rule, but we've tailored it a little bit to fit our informational needs. The information that we are hoping to gain from this reporting requirement will help us craft the next phase of rules following California's lead, which will be purchase requirements for fleets themselves. Next slide. The second transportation rule we are proposing to move forward with is the medium and heavy duty vehicle omnibus rule. It's also called the low NOx rule for those of us that are familiar with it. It's called the low NOx rule for obvious reasons. It establishes very strict NOx standards for medium and heavy duty engines. Like the ACT rule, that will take effect with model year 2025 if our proposal moves forward in the time frame we're hoping. The other important thing to note about this rule is that there are longer warranty requirements in there, so the manufacturers have to provide longer warranties. Next slide. The third rule we are planning to move forward with is one that I have personally been working towards for a very long time now, and it's medium duty vehicle inspections. The inspection program in New Jersey has been in place for a long time, and the medium duty vehicles have never been required to go to an inspection facility for inspection. They are allowed to self-inspect, and the data from those self-inspections is little to none as far as we can tell. So we're trying to close that long-standing gap by requiring this medium duty set of vehicles to go to a licensed inspection facility to have an inspection done by a licensed inspector. One of the reasons that we think this rule is more important now than ever before is because we want to ensure compliance with the low NOx omnibus rule that I just talked about. Second reason it's even more important now is because our inspections have found alarmingly high rates of tampering, particularly in this segment of vehicles. So ensuring that they get inspected on a regular basis by a trained professional at a certified facility will hopefully mitigate the rate of tampering and serve as a deterrent. The important thing to note here is that we need our sister agency, the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission, to do complementary rules in order for this to play out as we want it to. The inspection program in New Jersey is unique because both MVC and DEP have authority and regulations as it applies to the different aspects of this program. So we are waiting for our sister agency, Motor Vehicle Commission, to move forward with a rule proposal that requires these vehicles to go for inspection. Our rules will set forth the standards and procedures by which these vehicles are tested and the standards that they have to meet during that inspection. Next slide. Our fourth and final transportation rule for this phase 1 of our NJPACT is cargo handling equipment. So right now, California does not have a zero emission cargo handling equipment rule on the books. However, they are working towards that, and what they do have is a diesel fleet modernization rule, and that's the one that we are proposing to adopt by reference, although the timeframes will be different because California phased theirs in from 2007 to 2017, which obviously is not practical for New Jersey. So we'll be establishing a different phase-in timeframe, likely starting somewhere around 2023. So this will require all existing diesel cargo handling equipment at ports and intermodal rail yards to upgrade to Tier 4 technology. Tier 4 is the tightest standard that EPA has now, which means the lowest NOx and PM emissions possible. And as I said, as California moves forward with their zero emission cargo handling equipment rule in the future, we'll be keeping a careful eye on that to determine how we could potentially transition this sector also to fully electric. Next slide. So I think I mentioned some of this already. The zero emission fleet rule, following in California's footsteps, would be a complement to the advanced clean truck rule. So the advanced clean truck rule requires manufacturers to sell a certain % of electric vehicles. The zero emission fleet rule would potentially require fleets to buy a certain % of electric vehicles, therefore being a complement to the advanced clean truck rule. Cargo handling equipment rule we already talked about. We are waiting and watching for California to move forward with that proposal, but they're still a few years away. The ocean-going vessel rule that I know we had many stakeholders interested in was essentially a shore power reducing emissions while at berth rule. California is in the process of updating their rule. We are not moving forward with the existing rule adopting by reference at this time. We felt like this was one area where we needed to more carefully look at the differences between the California ports and the New Jersey ports and look at the different technologies that were available, whether it was the portable emission reduction systems or shoreside power and plugging in before we moved forward with this rule. So all three of these rules are on the docket for future consideration. We do not have a time frame for that, but we wanted you to know that they are not off the table. We will continue to look at these strategies and potentially others as we work our way towards a zero carbon transportation future in 2050. Next slide. So to wrap up, the time frame is that we are all working diligently to get proposals for all of these rules in the April 2021 New Jersey Register. For those of you that have witnessed DEP rulemaking in the past, you know that this is an extremely aggressive schedule. And I have to say that all of my staff and even people that aren't my staff have been pitching in to try to make this a reality. We have been spending many long days and weekends trying to get these proposals in a good shape and good format so that we're confident that they are technically sound and feasible for moving forward in April. So the proposals in the New Jersey Register will start our normal formal rulemaking process. So there will be a public hearing and a comment period as part of those rules. It will likely be a 60-day comment period. So comments can be submitted during that process and we will respond to them as part of the final rule adoption package. So this is the same process that we've always followed for doing rules. If you would like additional information on the NJPACT climate pollution reduction process, climate pollution reduction or climate pollution rule process, I don't have that acronym straight yet. You can send an email to one of these two mailboxes. These are the same mailboxes that were set up when we were taking comments as part of the informal stakeholder process back in September. I think that's the last slide. Yes.
Thank you all for joining. Just as a reminder, the link to see this is available, will be available on our public website. This will be posted so you can view it at any time. We do understand certain amount of people weren't able to log on. They too can also view the link once it's posted. Thank you.